My name is Clara, and this is episode 1 of Listen If You're Lonely. Since it's the first episode, I thought I would start by talking a bit about who I am and what this is. So, to start with who I am, I'm Clara, like I said. I'm 20 years old. I'm a university student out of state. I study psychology and creative writing because I hope to be a school psychologist and hopefully an author someday. I also play the ukulele, I paint, I draw, I love to read and write, and cook and bake, and basically every other hobby under the sun. And that's all to say, I don't have very many friends, especially since I'm out of state. I'm home right now for the summer. Everyone I do know is about 6 hours away. So I have a lot of free time this summer, and I've had audio recording and editing skills since I was in middle school. And I thought I'd finally put them to use, especially because some other podcasts really helped me get through some very lonely and quiet times like these before. And if I can be that for somebody else, it'd make me very happy. So then I think it makes sense that today's topic is loneliness, since I'm very well versed in it. It's I like to think of it like this entity that's kind of always hanging around me, whether I'm sitting on the floor in my dorm doing my makeup in the mirror, it's sitting next to me, or when I'm at home playing video games on a Saturday night like this one, it's in the chair next to me. And most of the time I've made peace with it, and it's just there. I'm pretty neutral about it, but sometimes it feels big, like it's crushing me, and it stirs up all these what ifs and a lot of whys as well. Why don't I have friends to hang out with tonight? What am I doing right now? Am I wasting my weekends? And I think part of that comes from the way our society works. We have 5-day work weeks, so then Fridays and Saturdays are big deals because they feel like the only time that we can just do whatever we want. But for me, that usually ends up being sitting on my couch reading or playing video games or writing, a short story for fun. And those are kind of boring things, and I say that in a very lighthearted way because they make me very happy. But I feel sometimes like I don't measure up compared to other people my age, especially since the college culture is to go out on the weekends, to drink, or, well, that's mostly it, to go drinking. And that's just not for me. I've always known that it hasn't been. And sometimes my friends up at school try and convince me to go to the clubs with them, but I tell them that I'd much rather spend my night watching a movie on the couch. I don't really think they get it, but they respect it. Then I wonder, am I doing the wrong thing? Should I be out there with them? I haven't quite figured out the answer to that yet. I think my weekends should be spent however I want them to. I think anybody would agree with that. There's no point forcing me to go out. But at what point am I letting the world pass me by? At what point am I just letting all these potentially cool adventures and fun stories just slip by? And coming home for the summer has really put that in perspective because I don't have anybody here. Yeah, like I said, I still haven't really figured out the answer. I think there's pros and cons to staying home on the weekends. You get to recharge and rest and spend time on hobbies that better you or make you feel happy or relaxed, but it is kind of lonely, and it is kind of sad for me personally, maybe isn't for you, to see everybody else out doing wonderful fun things on the weekend when you're just at home reading. And I know this all sounds so negative, like, man, I really hate all the things I just said are fun. Maybe it sounds like I don't like reading and playing video games, and I really do. I think I've just kind of let the loneliness take too much from me, take control of me too much, I guess. And I think that this podcast will be a way for me to get out of that, because it forces me to, get my thoughts out that I don't really share with anybody else, especially not on these weekends, when it's just me in this big old house. But I'm not quite sure. And what often happens on the weekends is I get this weird sense of impulsiveness. I want to just go change up my hair, or get a tattoo, or go get lost in Chicago. Something big. I haven't really found a way around that. Usually I'll go for a drive into the city, but I won't get out of the car. Or I do dye my hair a fun color. Right now it's purple. And that's enough for me, enough to, bandage the wound. But it still doesn't feel like perfect because there isn't somebody to do it with. Part of me really has always loved this idea of a twin flame or a soulmate or something, just somebody to call your person and somebody to do stuff with and to just always count on. And I haven't really found that. I have 2 best friends that I met when I was a freshman in college, the very first weekend. But none of us were able to be there for each other as much as we, I'm sure, would have liked to, because we were all dealing with our own struggles. And going away to college is never easy, but it was especially not easy for any of us. I think it was just bad luck. And I still love them, and I love spending time with them because they make me feel like I can let my guard down and just be 20. Just go blast music and drive to Taylor Swift, or decide to dye my hair at 3 a.m. They let me be impulsive in the way that I want, where I have friends by my side. But they live 6 hours away, and the 2 of them live together, which is, I think, the best turn of events, and I'm very happy for them. But then part of me can't help but feel a bit like an outsider, since they have all of these adventures and experiences and stories, like I mentioned, that I will never get to be a part of. Through quarantine, when it was just the 2 of them, they would take, very isolated, they were being careful, but they would take trips, go see the parks, and one of them was teaching the other to drive and stuff. And I never will get to be a part of that. And I think they'll always know each other in a way that I'll never get to know them, just because they're around each other all the freaking time. Besides that, I have a bigger friend group up at school that I met at the beginning of this fall semester, when stuff was not very open, but getting better, and they let us return to our dorms. I told my dad from the get-go that I did not want to go back. I hated it freshman year. I was so lonely, and I just didn't see a point in going back. Everything was still online, so why not just stay home? But he could tell that I was even worse off at home, where the only people I saw were my dad and my sister had just left to start her own college experience. So he made me a deal that I would try it for 1 month, and if I still hated it by the end of that month, I could come home and be an online student for the rest of the semester just from home. And I got to school first day circled a calendar date, October 23rd, I think, and told him that I would see him in a month. And it was not perfect. My roommate and I, we were randomly assigned and we just did not match very well. I was spending most of my days in a study lounge on our floor doing my homework. And since, everything was happening and we were trying to keep our distance, especially from strangers, no one really came in. It was usually just me from about the time I woke up to as late in the evening as I could stand, and I really was not any less lonely than I had been at home. I was using Twitch streams and YouTube videos to cope, and it's not even a real relationship at that point. It's just listening to these people and pretending they're my friends. But then one day I was sitting in there and another person came in and he sat at a table on the other end of the room, and I thought we would just do our work quietly. And then he turned to me and he asked me what I was majoring in, and we ended up having a lot in common, talked for a bit until I had to go to dinner. For the first time in months since March, when everything shut down, I started to feel a bit of hope. And I think it was honestly the next day I was back in that lounge and somebody else came in, sat down at that same table, and we didn't talk, but it was kind of nice to have another person in the room. At the end of it, when I was leaving to go get dinner, again, I think, I opened the door and he turned and said, "Make good choices." I didn't even know what to say to that, so I just laughed and walked out. And the next day, I ran into him again. He walked into me as I was heading to the study lounge and got really close and said, "Do you have hazel eyes?" And I said, "No, they're brown." And he apologized and ran off. And I thought I'd never see those two again, but then it was that weekend, and I was painting a gift for a friend, and I decided to wash my paintbrushes in the sink that I knew was in the study lounge. The person who is now my roommate was in there with two guys I had met and a couple other people, and yelled at me across the room, "Hey, are you painting?" And I said I was. I showed them and a couple other people what I had been painting, and then my paintbrushes are washed, so I left. But I knew that I had to go back there. That was my one shot at having somebody to hang out with. So I made up an excuse. I said, "Hey, my roommate's making a phone call right now. Can I sit with you guys for a bit?" And I ended up staying there for about 2 hours. Then I got invited into their group chat, got invited to movie night, and the rest is history. We became a group of 8, which is huge. Then, come second semester, we became a group of 12. And it's really great. It's this big web of little friendships. My roommate and this one guy, or the other guy and one of my neighbors, and then my neighbor and her roommate, all these little duos. But since I was the last person to join, after they'd all, gotten stuck together, I didn't have those. And I never found my person within the friend group the way everybody else seemed to. And I was always just tagging along. And it felt really nice to finally have real people to talk to. But it still feels like something is missing because I just don't have a person. And because I don't have that, because I'm just tagging along, I always feel like I don't have a strong ties to these people. And I feel like I could just slip away so easily, and then I get really anxious about it and start thinking and overanalyzing everything I do and everything I say and everything people do and say back to me. And recently, one of the people in the group made a comment that they were surprised I wasn't talking to more people in our friend group this summer. And I hadn't thought about it before that. I just thought we really weren't talking that much this summer, or any of us. I mean, our group chat has been dead for these past few weeks. But then he said, yeah, well, I've been talking to this person and that person. I know your roommate's been talking to X and Y. At the time, it was just a passing comment. I didn't think much about it. But then that night, I was laying in bed, and all I could think about is, why is nobody talking to me? And I know it's a two-way street. I know I could reach out to them as easily as they could reach out to me. But I have had a lot of friendships in the past where I've been the one to reach out all the time, the one to make the plans, the one to say, hey, it's my birthday tomorrow, can we do something? And it gets really tiring, and then it starts making you doubt if you guys are really that good of friends. If you personally stop making plans and then you just stop hanging out, it feels like, were we ever really friends, or were you just hanging out with me because you felt bad or because you had nothing to do? Which is all a really roundabout way of saying I'm kind of scared of reaching out to people. And I know that that's totally my issue. It does not fall on other people, but it certainly makes it hard to reach out and be vulnerable. And that's relates back to my point of wishing I just had one person, because that's so much easier to be vulnerable with. Not everybody needs just a person. I don't think you need to have just one person to hold you up. I think everybody needs a support system that has multiple people, multiple pillars, basically. But for me personally, the idea of just having someone, romantic or platonic, that I can just be me with is so appealing. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it has something to do with how I feel like I have a really hard time being myself around people, especially my huge friend group, the one that has me and 11 other people. It's really tough to be 100% authentic when you're surrounded by that many people. And even with my smaller friend group, just my two best friends and I, it still feels like a lot sometimes to just be me. When it was just the three of us in this little bar in Chicago, then I felt like me. I was in a dress I really liked, and we had this really good tea, and I felt so much like me. I just felt so visible. It felt really nice, and it was not scary for the first time in a while. I think probably because I care too much about what other people think, which is stupid. Obviously, doesn't matter what other people think, especially not strangers, because you're never going to see them again. But it's, friends and their opinions of you, at least they matter a lot to me. So when I have 11 sets of eyes on me, it's hard to be myself. But just having one person, sitting on the other end of the couch at the end of the day, maybe we've got a couple rescue cats between us and our favorite movie on the TV and 2 mugs of tea. That sounds so perfect. It sounds like I could be so authentic there. And I don't know, I think when I'm 20 and living in an apartment with 3 other people, it's not feasible to just want one person. I think that's something you grow up to want. You want to get married, maybe something like that. Or I've heard of queer platonic relationships where it's a person and you love them and you spend your life with them, but you're not like romantically involved. Something like that just sounds so cool, but not right now. And I think I've been talking for about long enough today, so I'll end the episode here. To anyone out there who takes the time to listen to this, thank you for being here today. And I hope you're feeling a little less lonely wherever you are. And I'll see you next time.